Okay, I'm back.
Joining as well. And we are live.
Okay, and we have Laurent with you, with us?
Yes, and Kimia is asking to join.
Yeah, yeah.
Bonjour
Hello.
Laurent,
Bonjour,
ça va?
bonjour. Ça va? Ouais.
Bonjour.
How are you, Ramin?
Good to see you again. Since
Yes.
how are you?
Fine. Did you start to learn French?
I well, better late than never. I'm trying. Yes.
You are you trying really?
Why not? So I'm doing my best.
Actually, he understands French, huh? Very well.
Yes.
Well,
So
that's the result of 4 years of high
wow.
school French. Yes.
So we have to be careful. Now, this chat room is very, it's something, huh, because I was listening again to Miles Collier's presentation in Mexico.
Mhm.
And when he was talking about polysemy, which means one word, many meanings in the same language,
Mm.
if you follow me.
Yeah.
So that's maybe the first point to start. And then after, if you are talking about translation, we will be probably lost.
Hmm.
A good
Unless
introduction.
it's interesting because but the thing is, if we can find some way to have a universal standardization, because even the United Nations, they agreed 2 languages, and to avoid any misunderstanding in any of the speeches that are made and whatnot, which is French and English, I believe. So,
Yes.
maybe the only solution is within the ANFs is to have a standardization of English and French, um, and to make sure,
It will be a first step, Ramin. But take another example. For instance, I'm starting the chat room, huh? But anyway, the word genuine in English.
Yes.
Authentic, it's easy. Authentic. Original, it's easy. Original. Genuine, we don't have it.
Yep.
Mm.
So what do we do?
Exactly.
Mm.
Anyway, how many people are we expecting?
It
We will
varies,
see.
but hopefully, I also left a link in the technical commission, so I hope, and I know some of our colleagues. I know Jean-Francois can't join us; he's on the train.
He's in the train, yes,
You know,
to Normandy,
to-
which is a beautiful destination, by the way. But anyway,
Yes, because it's holidays for many people. It's a long
yeah,
weekend, so I'm afraid
yeah.
maybe, I mean, people will have the YouTube, live on YouTube, so they will have everything if they want to watch it afterwards. So yeah, we
Because
can.
I can testify in the train, the Wi-Fi is a disaster. I mean, in France. Huh? I was
Yeah.
asking one day to I don't remember who. Wi-Fi is difficult when you are moving.
yeah.
And the faster you are moving, the more difficult it is for the Wi-Fi. And well, I'm just repeating.
Okay.
Anyway, we can do the chat room all together, all three. Yeah, no problem.
Gotham is joining very soon, I think, and 3 people are waiting already, and it's supposed to start in two, 3
2 minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
So
I hope GoTime will be there because we are two
yes,
uh, honorable guests.
absolutely.
It was interesting that the reason we picked the subject was that when I was raised in Mexico, we got so many different approaches and questions and whatnot. So it became a really interesting subject. So we thought it would be great to continue this discussion here in the chat room. And and Gautam was a member of the panel there, and part of your speech, I remember also you touched upon this issue. So I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion.
It's very interesting, Ramin. And don't forget another point. Some people, the one who have the genuine vehicles, have interest to go to a definition, proper definition of words. The other ones it's not the same story.
Yes, yes.
It's the interest to manage the,
Well,
you know.
well, this is exactly, in the panel discussion, this is what I covered because the definition of a replica in the US, it's much more different than what we have in FIVA. And the reason is because, there were certain interests, pushing for that definition, and that's how the law was passed. And I remember even, and it's raised a lot of controversy because, there's a big gap between what is in the law and what is the actual definition now. So,
Exactly. I remember at the FIVA, the first meeting with the Minister of Transportation, I put on the table the topic and said, okay, what do we do with those vehicles? And we agreed to use the mot replica, which is a bit different of réplique. In French, it's réplique. Replica is more general, and the argument was, l'argument en anglais c'est différent, mais was replica, we can use it worldwide. Which doesn't mean this is a replica, because we put replica and the vehicle, the cars, were copies.
Yep.
Well, a Lynx D type, for instance, is a copy, as you know. Okay, so anyway,
I
Yeah, I
have
think we
something
have
to say. It's time. Gotham is joining.
there
you go.
He's there. Yeah.
Dear,
Hello.
Hello.
dear
Hello.
honorable colleague Gautam,
Honorable
how are you?
and this at a dishonorable moment. I'm good. I'm at the Indiana Cafe on Boulevard Mopanas.
Really?
Yeah, I thought I might as well get myself some beer, get drunk, and talk sense eventually.
Gotham. And you didn't invite me. I'm very, 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 very
I
sad.
like to do this alone nowadays. I've become,
Drinking
very
alone is
it's
not a good idea.
drinking alone. It's very literary. I mean, I'm a, I write books, so I should drink alone.
Very simple.
I should maybe let people in.
Yeah. Right.
I think so. Yeah, let them all in. Let there be chaos.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, then Ramin, if you want to start,
Yes.
I will accept people time to time.
Okay. Thank you, Alize. And thank you to our guests, Laurent and Gautam, who have kindly joined us today. I think it would be good to give you a little bit background about today's subject. And to give you a little bit background about today's subject, this subject goes back to a very fascinating panel discussion, which was held in Mexico at the last FIVA symposium on March 1st. And the panel raised a lot of issues that, how certain terms and definitions could be lost in translation proverbially. And it was interesting that even in the Q&A and whatnot, a lot of different interpretations were raised. And even we saw some differences in how the definitions that FIVA adheres to differ greatly, even with some legislation in countries like the United States. So this subject became such a interesting topic that we had a lot of contact from different people asking if we can continue this discussion. So it was here that we invited Laurent Herriot, who is the head of the technical commission of FIVA, and he and his team have drafted a list of terms which are basically used by FIVA in interpreting and understanding and approaching different issues. And we have Gautam Sen, Vice President Emeritus of FIVA, who was a key member of the panel in Mexico and has worked, and he did a fantastic presentation on this issue in the Mexican symposium. So we've asked them to join us, and we've asked and to continue the discussion, and also get the interaction from our dear members in the audience. So welcome to the chat room, and would you like to start, Gautam, or Laurent? We'll leave it. Who would like to go first?
Gautam.
I wouldn't mind starting. Yeah, I wouldn't mind starting because after that I can disappear and get down to my beer. So no, I think what was the reason why we got this happening or going in the first place was that the topic that we chose for our symposium was about originality, what is original and what isn't. And at the same time, that was supposed to be the topic. And so the word that we were looking at was the word which said originality, and we were questioning that. At the same time, the other thing that came up as to whether instead of using the word originality, should we use authentic? And what is authentic and what isn't authentic? Should that be the title? And then when we discussed this further, and when we had someone like Miles Collier also, let's say, joining that debate before the event itself, we had this issue about whether originality and authenticity could be interchangeable, and they were not, because that in itself kind of came up to the fact that when it comes to originality, I think there are different, let's say, understanding of the word. And time and again, I've come across people saying that they have restored this car, and it's a complete comprehensive restoration, and everything is original. But then if everything is original, why did you restore it? When you restored, you've already changed. So there's something it couldn't be original anymore. So that could be, of course, one of the factors. So, and whereas authenticity is a case of where when you are actually restoring the vehicle, how authentic you are to what was period, let's say, correct, is an aspect of authenticity. So there in itself, there are differences. And again, in a different language, and at least I think in French, these two words take on a totally different meaning. And maybe I would ask Laurent to kind of probably say it the way he would see these two words in French, and you will understand that it's different. So can we use, when we go ahead and put these definitions into the technical code, what is the language that we're deciding upon, and whether in that case, when it's translated into other languages, do those words have the same meanings, or do those words, let's say, mutate into totally different sense of meanings? So that was the thinking. And I would like to, in that case, obviously have the opinion of everybody else, not just Laura, but everybody else who is here today, and see how do we take this forward? How do we decide, and what could be finally the solution for deciding what could be the best way to, define what a word could be? Laura, I hand this over to you.
Thank you, Gautam. Hello, everybody. As Gautam said, and Ramin also, it's a really, really difficult subject, but very interesting, of course, and very useful for us. When we worked last year to update the technical code, very fast we felt we need some tools, and then we wrote together a first index or dictionary, you can call it whatever.
Yeah, chat show FIVA, total
and with a couple of 34 definitions, we validated 10 definitions of words. And the first example I would take will be, what is the difference between a copy and a replica? And we can see the difference after. But I would like also to alert you, we are talking about translation. Don't forget, in one language, let's stay in English, you have the polysemy word, means one word with several definitions, several meanings. So I'm taking this example to illustrate how difficult is the topic. To take another example, and thank you, Gautam, to permit me to take it. You have some words very easily translatable. For instance, original is original in French. Authentic is authentic. But genuine, we don't have it in French. So what do we do? Question. Thank you for the moment. I would like to give the floor to any participants because I think the interest is to exchange about the ideas. Thank you.
If you allow me, I have a question. And you mentioned that it's can be an issue of translation, but also it can be an issue of interpretation. And this is one of the issues we identified, and we had a discussion a little bit about it before we started the session, and we also discussed it in the panel in Mexico, and that sometimes a wording is basically interpreted in a way to meet a certain objective or a certain goal, which is not necessarily in line what the ultimate, what the correct meaning would be. And so we have, for instance, a very clear definition in the FIVA code for a replica. But in US legislation, we have interpretation of replica for vehicles that would never be accepted as a replica under our definition. And I think one of the issues that also I think at FIVA we have to look at is promoting uniformity across the ANFs and also using that to try to develop a standard. I just wonder, what are your thoughts on that?
You want me to continue, Rami?
Yes, please. Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, take the replica example. It's a very good example, of course. To build to validate the definition, we went to the world of art because the world of art was facing much before us about replicas and copies. So let's take, for instance, the famous copy of La Joconde, made in the end of the 19th century.
La
It was not
Joconde,
made.
just to explain, Laurent, to others, La Joconde is the Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa,
And
sorry.
in France, they call it the
Sorry.
Joconde.
Okay. Thank you,
It's a
Madam.
Mona Lisa for the rest of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So this copy was, of course, not made by Leonardo da Vinci, but some of other works, usually in the world of art, a copy or a replica was ordered or made by the artist. So in our field, means it's made by the manufacturer. Let's take an easy example, a D-type replica. If it's made by Jaguar, it's a replica. And all the continuations are de facto replicas. They are real Jaguars, real D-types, but modern ones. A Lynx D-type is a copy, never made by Jaguar. Could be perfect, but that's not the point. It's a copy. So that's the difference we started to use and to validate. And we validate this also with the French government when I was at the FIVA, the French Federation. That's easy to understand. If you have any question on that, we can start.
So I
The
just
question, if I may, sorry. Yeah, Rami, may I?
No, you go ahead, Gautam, and I'll follow up.
Yeah. So the question there is that I think up till now, Laura, if I understand right, when it came to cars which were copies, which were like for instance, they say Cobra, the Cobras which have been done by others, by Super Performance or different companies, we were referring to them as replicas. And so, at least in my understanding of, if you look at the skid car magazines and stuff like that, they were obviously talking of the cars which were looked like an AC Cobra, but were not made by AC, were replicas. And whereas I think now the technical code has put the word replica for the ones which are done by the manufacturer. If AC Cobra, if AC made again Cobra continuations, it would be called a replica. Whereas those, as far as we were seeing them as continuation series. So I think there could be some confusion there. And there itself, again, to understand that there is a difference between replica and a copy. I think that needs probably much greater elaboration. And otherwise, what I would have thought was a continuation series is actually a replica, and what actually I thought was a replica is actually a copy. Itself, I think, creates a bit of, let's say, dissonance in the mind of enthusiasts. Maybe you need to elaborate upon that much more, Laurent, and probably that's where we will run into confusion and problems in the future.
You're perfectly right. That's what Rami started to explain. And we have the same case in France. It was the easiest way to call all those vehicles replicas because everybody is using that. But in the technical code, for the FIVA ID card, for instance, it's very clear for us to identify the vehicle. For such a vehicle, if it's a Ram Cobra, a Super Performance or whatever, the make will be Cobra, okay? But the manufacturer will be Super Performance, Ram, Dax, or whatever. And it's the same for the other vehicles. But we have to be very careful and very clear with those words because the ones who has the original vehicles have all interest to be recognized as originals. The one who has copies, replicas, because there's a lot of interest in the game. It's exactly the same. Let's take another example with the FIVA 500. You cut a FIA 500 to make a Jolie de Plage. It's the rapport is 1 to 10. 10,000 euros, 100,000 euros. So it's very easy. But such a car, we have, that's why the scrutineering of our scrutiny is very important. And that's why a virtual scrutineering is, I will say, dangerous. We have to check what we have in front of our eyes. Otherwise, we will be lost. But I agree with you. We use the word replicas generally, and in fact, regarding the definitions, we should split between copies and replicas, which are not the same. For the Cobras, all the continuation, the shell-based continuations, the first ones are starting in August 96. So the first one will be 30 years old next year. And that's the same for the Pur Sang Argentina 35B. This year, the first one will be 30 years old. So they will be eligible for a FIVA ID card. But as such, as Pur Sang.
But wouldn't be the ones which were kit cars if DAX made one if a DAX replica was made, replica as we call it or whatever, facsimile was made in 1994, today we should be able to issue a ID card to that also if it's as long as it calls itself a DAX, right?
We do.
It is still a historic vehicle.
We do.
Okay.
And we do. And it's a replica, but it's a real DAX. It's a 35B replica or copy, but it's a real person. So the identity of the vehicle is the key point. Otherwise, we will be lost.
So, Laurent, I'm sorry to jump in. So I understand, for instance, the super performance Cobras are licensed by Shelby American, and their VINs also start with the CSX.
Mhm.
So when they turn 30 years old, we refer to them as the Shelby American Cobra or a Super Performance because their VIN numbers are registered and they're registered in the Shelby registry. So a
Exactly.
DAX is a kit car, or or
It's a
assembled outside, and they're obviously they're not licensed by Shelby American.
No,
So
no.
how if you had two cars, one from Super Performance with a CSX VIN number, and
Mhm.
one from DAX coming, so what would and they're both 30 years old, one would be registered as a Shelby Cobra?
So the first Shelby Cobras from '96 were not super performance at that time. It was
No, no, of
CAD-CAM.
course.
They were
This is
they were
obvious,
made by
yes.
CAD-CAM anyway. But on the behalf of and under the name of Shelby, so it's there are Shelbys. There are modern Shelby, but that's Shelbys. So
They're
they
Shelby's. They're
will be
licensed by Shelby, yes.
they are eligible as Shelby Cobra 427 SC continuation from January 96 or 97, whatever. And the DAX will be eligible as a DAX. No problem with that.
So then the Shelby would be a continuation, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so I'm sorry to
And it will be a
take everybody.
replica.
What's
And
that?
it will be a replica. The DAX is a copy.
Okay. So then the question I have, I apologize to the audience for taking so much time. Just as a follow-up question, then the Bentley continuations from the factory, which are almost, I guess, through the 3D technology, almost identical to the cars that came out of the production line, or the Aston Martins that came out. I think the 18 or 19 that came out, which were done with, I think the only difference from the originals were some safety issues. But otherwise, even I understand the magnesium cranks in the Bentleys were using the same metallurgical formulation and whatnot. So my question is that how would we differentiate a continuation or a replica Cobra, which is obviously probably quite different in some extent with what was produced in the 60s, with a continuation coming out of the factory, which is almost identical to what was originally produced? Would we differentiate between these two as well?
It's not difficult. Huh? We have all the numbers. The continuations are very easy to identify. For instance, if you take the Jaguar XKSS, if you take the lightweight, the new D type, etc., and the low drag. So everything is we know the numbers. It's easy. But those vehicles, they are 2, 3, 4 years old actually. They will be eligible in 25, 26, 27 years. Don't be misunderstood, huh? So it's easy. The continuation, it's an easy problem.
Okay.
Mm.
Hello, a question. We
Hello.
have to think about also the copy included the serial number, the chassis number. That this is a fraud, and sometimes someone can understand the copy as a fraud than as we already said. This is one issue. And another issue is the transformation. For example, a Beetle then can be transformed to Porsche 356 that using the old serial number of the Beetle, and all the rest is something else. So we have also to define very well also these two situations. Thank you.
Of course. Well, I don't remember the name of the family in South America who start to build those 356 from Volkswagen Beetle. They it was Resna. It was well, anyway. It was Antamecanica. Antamecanica. Okay. Now the thing is, as long as the vehicle is presented as an Antamecanica and not a real 356, there is no problem. The problem is when you try to present a fake car for an original, and then the number is, of course, it's a real number. Problem, you have one car original living somewhere else, and one day, that's the story with Kinley with the 300 SL. I'm sure everybody knows that story. The Kinley was a wonderful professional. I remember I visited them 30 years ago with Mercedes. They were working for Mercedes. A lot of Mercedes were restored there. So it's crazy because Kinley now is closed. No, it's not closed. They were bought by Mercedes. But end of story for the family, for the father and the two sons. So we have to be very careful. And when I say we as institutions, of course, but also professionals, because they put their business in danger if they go too far. That was the example of Kinley. So to answer your question, it's very simple. The identification of the vehicle is the starting point. If it's genuine, if it's correctly presented, no fake numbers, no blah blah blah, no problem. In the Bugatti world, you have more than 2.5 Bugatti today than in the period. And by miracle, suddenly a car which was disappeared since years and years, there is a new one with the good number. Anyway, fake. It's in the definition of the technical code, huh? Fake. No problem. Other questions?
Yeah. Just Roger Beatty. I'm from Australia. I'm just interested to know for things like Mercedes 300s and Bugattis. They're well documented, and the histories are well known. We've just had a couple of court cases here in Australia about recreated original Holdens and things which are our local manufactured cars, which did get. I mean, they went for some hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the person who sold it has now gone to jail. But for cars that aren't as well known, but are starting to become more valuable, how do we get away with that? I mean, I'm looking at things like Fiat Topolinos, which in 1936 were just a car. Then in 1945 got a body put on them by Nuccio Bertoni did one. But so the number doesn't necessarily equate to anything. I'm just wondering how we go about those.
That's a very difficult question because the more the car, the vehicle is old, the more the life was plenty of adventures, changing the body, changing the engine, changing everything. So very difficult to answer your question. In Australia,
Yeah. So just I think the example that you took, which is of the Topolino chain by, let's say, Bertone in the post-war situation, if it did happen within the first 10 years of the car's existence, then it's still valid. Let's put it that way, as far as FIVA ID cards are concerned. It's still acceptable. And the problem happens if it's the modification happened after 10 years. And if there have been a car with, let's say, a certain number of competition history, which happens at the cars which have been modified later than 10 years, 15, 20 years, it becomes a part of that vehicle's history if it is not being messed around and if you are faithful to what it was. So I think there could be exceptions to that situation, I would imagine.
Yeah. Certainly, we have a number of cars here in Australia that have turned up with bodies that no one knows who made them. They were bought from Europe or America and have been used for race, and they've got racing histories in Australia from the 50s and 60s, but no one knows where they came from originally.
but that's not the case only in Australia. As for competition cars, well, that's the big adventure, I will say, because during the life of the competition, the car was updated, uh, including works cars, including Ferraris. You blow an engine, you put the other one in the other chassis. So we're lost. Uh, Fortunately, we were visiting the Ferrari Classica the other day. Those manufacturers, well, Ferrari has everything from day one, which is a wonderful asset. And I suspect all manufacturers are the same. Oh, I hope so. I know Mercedes, they do. We have to visit the Maserati Classique manager in a couple of months. We will see what's about archives, and that's the another point, because when we are talking identification, we when we are talking definitions, we have to have access to the information, to the archives. I know the Revs Institute, for instance, is doing a wonderful work on that subject. Gautam, maybe you can say a couple of words on that.
Yeah, in terms of archives, Rebs has quite extraordinary material, including whatever they've been able to record from obviously time immemorial. So what happens is that if you're able to, they might be able to help you trace the history of some specific cars, especially the ones which have been in competition at various, places. Of course, I'm not sure that they probably would have information of cars that were raced in Australia or in India or in some other remote part, or maybe they do also. But I think what is one of the things we are looking at in FIVA is also to try and, let's say, not centralize, but to make easily accessible the variety of, let's say, archives which are there today across the globe. And something that we would like to do is to see that these archives, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Japan, whether it's in Chile, become centrally accessible for everybody eventually, so that they can then be able to trace maybe the history of their vehicle better than otherwise.
Yeah,
Rami?
thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that. My other point would be the number of old chassis that then get completely different bodies put on them. You know, we've for as a Fiat person, I know a lot of Fiats, but yeah, we've now got a number of Balila Coppadoros driving around in Australia, which we never were originally, but they're a pretty little car, like seeing them. But yeah, they're still a Balila. I mean, it's not, it hasn't changed that, but I'm not sure how they stand on the FIVA scale.
Exactly. By the way, wonderful little car. But your question, uh, it's worldwide. We have the same problem in France. They have the same problem in Italy. So you can't stop imagination on humans. So, and that's it. It's not. We are like this. Okay. So we have to find some tools. And once again, it is very difficult. And more the time is growing, more it will be difficult. It is difficult for us. Can you imagine in 20 years for our kids? So that's why the documentation archives are very important, and the access to the archives, like a worldwide portal or whatever. Anyway, what time is it in Australia?
1:33 Saturday morning.
Ah, thank you to be with us.
Oh no, this is a good one. Normally they're 3 a.m. So it's nice that it started at 1 a.m.
Okay. I remember in Australia, because I have family there, the Full Falcon Phase 3 weapon. I'm sure you have copies or replicas of those cars. I see Carla somewhere. Hello, Carla. Who's next? We didn't talk about too much about translation, huh, for the moment. Ramin, are you there?
Hello.
Somewhere? Ah.
Yes.
May I have a question?
Yes, sure.
Oh.
Can you please turn on your camera, please?
Okay.
It's better to see you. Thank you.
It's okay? You're welcome.
Yes.
My question is, in case of the recreations, you know, some companies have lost some of their important models in history. So they have reproduced some of them. For example, the Auto Union Type 52 or Mercedes-Benz 450K Strablinian. What's the policy in FIVA in case of these kind of cars?
And before we answer Bozu, I'd like to just introduce Bozu to you all. I'm happy to see that he's here. Bozu is the one who wrote the book Fit for the King, which won the Historic Motoring Awards. And I think you should, you have the presence of somebody who's asking questions, because that would depend upon his next book on that. So please, I would like, I think, Laura, you better do a good job of answering that one.
Okay, I will try to do my best. Now, Bozu, about the examples you took, I can see already two differences. The Type 52 never existed in those times. So it was only a project. A C-type or a D-type, they made in England by Krosner and Gardiner. Those cars were existing, were competing, and were destroyed and disappeared in the Espart after the war. So it's a bit different. But in any case, I think personally it's good to can see cars which were not in life anymore, which were disappeared. But we have to consider them as reconstruction by the manufacturer or ordered by the manufacturer, nothing to do. But for instance, they will be eligible for a FIVA card after 30 years and not now. And there will be, as a continuation about the datation, there will be not 36 or 38, there will be 2004 or 2011 or whatever, okay? And there will be Type 52, reconstruction, continuation, evocation, or whatever, okay?
So then, Laura, what's the difference between continuation and reconstruction? Because if you take the case of the Auto Union, that's something which was never existed and is built brand new. So just because there were drawings, they're neither reconstruction nor continuation. They're brand new vehicles.
No.
They just happen to
This is a construction.
It's just a plain construction, not even reconstruction.
The Type 52 is a construction.
Construction.
A new D-type Auto Union or the C-type, whatever. It's
reconstruction.
It's a reconstruction.
Which is not the same as continuation.
No.
Because continuation would be cars which are obviously multiples made of.
Exactly.
When you make just one more, then I guess it's just a reconstruction, right?
Exactly. So we have continuation, construction, reconstruction. And after we could have interpretation, evocation. So I'm stopping.
Okay, in case of Mercedes-Benz 540K, the company says that the chassis was not lost, but the body. They had changed the body and so on. They say some history on the car. What is this? What you categorize this car? They say that we had the chassis and the engine, and just we had reconstructed the body.
Okay, it depends. Did the body exist in those times or not?
Yes.
In 1938, yes.
Okay.
When it
If
came
it's
out, it had a different body, and then they changed the body, and it went back to the original body style when they restored it.
okay, so back to original. So that's a very good point. So it's retour à la configuration d'origine, I will say in French, but I don't know to say it in English. So yes, back to original configuration. So that's a very good point, and we can consider that. But uh, the chassis is original, you said?
They say, I am not sure, but they say that the chassis was original and the engine as well.
Okay, that's another point. What can we do if a manufacturer is saying those things? We can't do anything. We have to trust them. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it would be very difficult. So when the manufacturer is saying, because we had a couple of other examples on the same type, we follow the manufacturer. So if the chassis is from 30, what did you say, 36?
38, I believe.
38, we can consider the car as 38 cars with a body made in today or 2 years ago or whatever. It's not a problem.
Okay. And I have another question, if it's possible. There are some companies, such as Mechatronics in Germany, they updated the resto mode. They use a Mercedes 280 SE, and they install a modern engine for that. They are considered as a classic or no? Because they're not really a classic.
No, they're not. If the engine is new, then it's not the same car anymore. It's a new car.
Okay.
So you have two categories now. You have
the engine is not related to the original, so it's
not only the engine. You can have the rolling trains. You can have the transmission. You can have a lot of parts. But you have two new categories in the mood. Actually, you have the resto mode. So you modernize a classic vehicle to update its performance. And you have also the contrary, the backdating. So let's take, for instance, an example with Porsche. It's easier. You take a 72 or 3 Carrera RS, and you update its performance. And the contrary, you take a 996, and you change its body to look like 73 RS, and you can have the results identically, visually talking, the same cars, but you have a real car from the 70s with a huge performance, and you have a 96 from the 2000 or whatever, looking like the other one. But those cars are not eligible for us. In any case, a backdating is eligible. One day, maybe we will be able to consider a resto mode, and then in the times passing.
But I agree with you 100. But the question is that, but we have to consider this kind of cars. They are existing, and I believe that not in classic area, but we have to classify them in another folder, I believe. Maybe resto mods. Is there any project in FIVA for them?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. But first, as I'm repeating, we will be in capacity to consider backdating. Resto mode, the cars are modern. Sorry, it's a car from 2 years old. I can't do anything about that. So it's not.
Well, not for a classic, yes, but for a resto mod.
So then you have to consider maybe to start other definitions, because we are working for years and years at FIVA for the recognition of the historic vehicle. It's not classic, it's historic. Then maybe we will have to consider the other families of vehicle to be recognized. But for the moment, our field is historical or classic vehicles.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So where are we?
Maybe someone else has something to say.
You, Alizé, maybe?
You about the topic? Many things to say. I can see the debate online. People are talking about the replicas. They are not really, they are not original, so it's not good. But I don't know. You have to tell if it's acceptable or not.
No, but don't laugh. I had once in the French Federation an application for an historic certificate. Look, sir, it's an original copy. The guy wrote me that original copy. What's that? So
yeah, but I think it's not that clear for all the
it
people.
is not. It is not clear. That's why we need a tool, and the tool is the first index in the technical code. After, we can be okay with one definition, not okay with another one. Okay, let's talk. We are not perfect. We can improve this index, but this index is the starting point of the topic. Otherwise, we will be lost.
But
not only in translation. Huh?
Maybe one question after you said that. When, for instance, when you are an enthusiast and you want to enjoy, but you cannot, for instance, afford the original model and you have a replica. You are still an enthusiast, right? So, yeah. What is the relationship you can still have, with the movement if it's a replica? Is it a law or no? To consider yourself as a collector if it's a replica, for instance.
Of course, because who can afford a Cobra, a real street competition or semi-competition from 64? Who can afford a short wheelbase 250 Ferrari? That's not the point. The point is the replicas. They are real in the market since years and years. The modifications also are the first one were made on T-model Ford as a speedster more than 1 century ago. It's a fact. So we don't have to judge that. We only have to consider what is in our field, in the FIVA field. That's it. And we can, of course, evaluate, how can I say that?
Improve?
Improve, yes. On other families, like the gentleman said, about backdating, about modification, about replicas, about copies, all other families. But maybe not all the families are historical vehicles. That's another subject. But they do exist. We have to, once again, those vehicles needs to have a proper identification to be recognized as they are. After, we can work easily in our field to defend our rights. I'm thinking, of course, about LEZ, because we have no daily use. We are 1% of the circulation in the world, etc., etc. But we could not do what we do for historical vehicles. For those, I will call them different vehicles. That's for sure.
Roger?
Alexandre, Roger, other questions? Bonjour, Carla? Where are we? Maywald, I don't know who it is. Kimia, Martin, Vincente from Spain, about young timers. No, no question.
In the meantime, just Laurent, you remember the symposium conservation versus restoration? It was also part of the debate because of the safety of the car, especially cars you can use on a race. And I remember perfectly a pilot was saying that it's also a question about safety. Sometimes you can use the replica to do the race, but then you have the original model at home because you like it. What do you think about this?
Once again, it's a fact. How can we? Who are we to blame an enthusiast who is a lucky man in life? He has a 250 GTO to order a clone, a twin. We had this discussion at Ferry Classique the other day. They call that twin. I'm calling it clone, but it's the same. And because the original 250 GTO is a worldwide asset, not only for him but for history. So it would be ridiculous to race with those guys. We were talking about Bugattis. If you go to Angoulême, I know you know this town very well. Okay, so 10 years ago, my boss had one of the most genuine 35B Bugatti in France and probably in the world. Okay, he's a very good driver, and at the end of the tries, he said, "Okay, I'm fed up. That's my last race with the car." Why? Because all the others Bugatti were not Bugatti, were Pursa Argentina. So you are not taking the same risks with a replica as an original. They are 40 or 50 horsepower more. So it's no question. So to answer your question, nothing to say with clones. The only thing is when you have a clone or a twin, and if the day you sell the original one, you can't separate them. That's why Ferrari, they are calling that twins. You don't separate the twins. But it's in an ideal world, huh?
Of course.
It's not the case in the real life.
It isn't one of the problems though that if the original cars aren't getting used, they're losing their history. I mean, they know then. Isn't that one of the big conversations in the movement about making them into museum pieces rather than actually being driven as cars?
Roger, that's yeah, you're perfectly right. But we have to make a difference between a car in a museum, which it's not. They can't put every car in the museum on the road because it's difficult, and the competition, yeah, risking the car, so it's different. But you're right, a car is made to be driven. Otherwise,
In fact, if I may just interrupt, Roger, your point is quite valid in the sense that in many instances, the twin, which may have been racing or competing in retrospective events, the laurels that are won by the twin actually get attributed to the original. So the original might be sitting at home and yet gaining laurels, which are not actually being won by the because there is this confusion about it. So there is this thing about, as you said, the history is not, it's not going any further, but unfortunately, the storytelling might be otherwise.
Yeah, thank you. And one other point that actually is a translation one. Words that we're using, I'm not sure in the glossary how we are defining, but words like authenticity, which are in English, but then are in French and are, yeah, it sounds like the same word, but often they have actually quite different meanings in the other languages. How do we deal with that?
well, I think authenticity is one of the easiest words. at the beginning of the meaning to use with. After, it's always the same story. How many components of a car or a motorcycle are we talking about? Original chassis, original engine, original transmission, original body. So once again, you have in the difficult answers, I'm often taking this example, which is l'esprit et la lettre, spirit, and to be letter by letter, I will say. So if you are in the spirit of what the vehicle was at that time, we can consider it. Okay. If you put a Getrack 5 gearbox on an E-Type, I'm sorry, it's much more easy, of course, huh? Wonderful, but it's not the spirit.
Sorry, can you repeat the last question about the gearbox of the E-Type?
No, I was answering Roger about spirit and authenticity, to respect the spirit of the original or authentic car. If you want to upgrade, it's a kind of resto mode, huh? And put a 5-speed gearbox Getrack in an E-Type. It's probably very much more usable, efficient, but it's not the spirit. The car is no more authentic. But the problem is with the company when you look at the races. Actually, you can have wonderful spectacle in Goodwood, in Le Mans Classique, or whatever. Those cars, I'm sorry, they are no more original. They are no more authentic. You have the 289 little Cobras. They are giving 500 horsepower today. Come on, you can see in Le Mans on the la ligne droite des Unodières, Mulsanne straight. They are taking the feel of the GT40. Impossible in the old days. So that's it. But that's a spectacle. That's a big debate with the organizers. They are selling shows. So
Okay, we have 3 minutes left. So maybe, Ramin, would you like to say something to close the session? I don't know if you. Yeah.
Can you hear me? I have a bad. It seems. Is my voice coming through?
Yes.
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry because for some reason the Wi-Fi is a little bit unstable right now. Well, actually, to be very frank, I have one question and one closing statement, if you don't mind. I want to use this very quickly. If the vehicle is titled, a continuation vehicle is titled as a Shelby Cobra, as it is done in some of the United States, in the US, 30 years later, we look at it as a Shelby Cobra, or we still, because it's the title is saying what it is.
No, usually the
And
title is not
am I
saying what it
getting
is.
through?
Sorry, huh? Can you hear me?
Excuse me?
Can you hear
Unfortunately,
me?
my line is, for some reason, it's
Okay.
I feel like I'm speaking, I'm underwater.
No, don't move.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Now, to answer, usually the titles are not saying what is the car, because it's in. I've seen too much titles. No, they are not saying anything. In those cases, but the FIVA ID card we will say it, because now we are no more, as you know, classify the vehicles, but we are writing all the history we have on the car, and it will be a continuation forever, no problem. You don't move anymore, Ramin. You're probably lost in this chat room, lost in translation.
Yes. Good one, Laurent.
I try my best. Do we have other questions?
I think it's time to say goodbye. I know it's always sad to say goodbye, but we have to. I did share a message in the chat to say that if the people here are not already part of the newsletter, they can drop their email addresses and, of course, name, first and last name, and also that we will publish the session afterwards. So there is also the link tree you can access to have details about FIVA's activities. And okay, thank you, Borzu. Thank you again for participating. And yes, apart from that, next topic is not defined yet. Ramin is trying to join again, but I think the connection is not good in Iran. Anyway, thank you, Laurent.
Hello, Luis. Luis is arriving.
Yeah, Luis,
that's
you are
the end of the chat room.
You are 1 hour late, Luis.
Thank you for coming, Luis.
I just noticed it's it's the confusion of the hours. Sorry.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, maybe we will do a different timing as well, because as Bro just said, for Australia, for instance, it's not very convenient this time, but we could try to, do like different timing for more people to join. But still, you have the whole session on YouTube channel, Luis, if you want to see it again.
And very quickly, I'll jump in to say thank you to everybody. I'm sorry for some reason, Murphy's Law, just as I was about to, the screen disappeared in front of me. My apologies to everybody, and my thank you to everybody for coming tonight. And also, I think the audience understands that this wonderful discussion, which was started in Mexico and continued here today, I think we have a lot more room for discussion to continue as well. So I want to thank everybody for spending the time and joining the conversation. And thank you to Laurent and Gautam very much for giving us their time and today.
My pleasure.
A great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.